Around Achilles, the waters of the Scamander are in the grip of flames. The riverbed gradually dries up. Elms and willows, tamarisks and cypresses, everything standing on the banks catches fire, while the frantic fishes try to escape the fire of Hephaestus, god of blacksmiths. The river's very strength seems to be ebbing away. The Scamander gives back the Trojans' armor. It vomits up the corpses choking its flanks. The river begs Hera for mercy. It will spare Achilles if she stops torturing its waters and banks. The goddess agrees. It is not good for a god to be tormented for the sake of a mortal. At a sign from her, Hephaestus quenches its flames and the water resumes its peaceful course. Achilles is released. Stunned, he hauls himself onto a bank. Hera breathes a sigh of relief. Achilles is safe and sound. The time has come to finish with Troy. And the son of Thetis once more gets up and returns to the fray. His heart has turned his pain into rage. He burns only with the desire to fight, thinks only of murder, of blood, of the painful sobs of men. The gods are shocked. Achilles' insatiable anger is inhuman. It must be feared that such an excess of passion will lead men and gods to some tragic fate. Suddenly, for no apparent reason, Ares, the god of war, who has sided with the Trojans, attacks Athena, the ally of the Greeks. He insults her, hurls abuse at her. He reproaches her for her innumerable misdeeds since the beginning of this war. He accuses her of having sown discord amongst the gods, and above all, to have guided the hand of young Diomedes, the king of Argos, in order to wound him. Ares, the god of war. Today, Athena will pay. Ares throws his spear with all his might at Athena. She lifts up a huge black jagged rock and shatters Ares' limbs before bursting into a triumphant laugh. Aphrodite then approaches Ares. But Athena does not give her time to lead her handsome lover away to some refuge. She attacks the goddess of love. Apollo is about to intervene, but Poseidon steps in. The god of the oceans reminds him that once upon a time they were both condemned by Zeus to place themselves in the service of a mortal, Laomedon, at that time king of Troy. And that together, under duress, they built the walls of this city, Troy, which today is dividing the gods and obliging them to fight against each other. How can Apollo help the heirs of the man who condemned the gods to work for him? Apollo agrees. Yes. Why go to war against his fellow creatures for these miserable mortals whose fate is to fade away and fall like leaves? Let the fighting between the gods cease, and the Trojans and Greeks settle their dispute themselves. But at this, the venerable Artemis, Apollo's sister, nearly chokes with indignation. Does her brother, protector of Troy, dare to run away? With her arrows, she will pierce all those who would attack the children of Priam. Immediately, Hera, with white hands, tears her bow and quiver from her shoulders, hurls her to the ground, and beats her about the ears. Her hatred for Artemis goes back a long way. The virgin goddess is the bastard daughter of Zeus, born of her rival Leto, whom she vainly pursued to the end of the oceans. Artemis manages to escape the wrath of Hera and, weeping, flees. Olympus no longer looks like Olympus. In front of the Trojan walls, the whole plain is blazing with the glitter of bronze. Indifferent to the fighting of the gods and men, Achilles becomes even more determined, decimating the Trojan battalions with his spear. Like a god, Achilles springs in every direction, rushing at his victims. He strikes the young Dryops in the neck. With his great sword, he takes the life of the noble Dardanos. Then Tros, son of Alastor, falls to his knees in the hope that by making him his prisoner, he will spare him. Achilles strikes him on the head with his sword. It is then that he pierces the shoulder of Lycaon, son of Priam, Hector's half-brother, and cuts off his head before sending it rolling far away with his helmet. The black earth is drenched in blood. And this terrible sight stimulates the ardor and fervor of the Greeks. From the top of the walls, Priam, witnessing the defeat of his army, orders that the gates be opened wide to allow his warriors to enter. All the men rush inside. All but one. Hector. He hardly hears Priam's voice. Priam, who holds out his hands to his son, begging him to turn around. But Hector remains deaf to his father's pleas, and to those of Andromache, his wife. He is waiting for Achilles. And Achilles comes to him. The son of Thetis is hungry for glory, and his formidable hands are sullied with blood and dust. Hector falters. Fear, a terrible fear, makes his whole body shake. An unknown, irrepressible fear. Hector turns around. He flees. Achilles dashes after him. Three times they run around the walls of Troy, under the astonished gaze of men and gods. Then Athena, appalled, rushes to Hector. The goddess of cunning takes on the form of the Trojan prince's favorite brother, the young Deiphobus. Deiphobus stops Hector and speaks respectfully to him. By running from his fate until he is out of breath, he cannot hope to escape Achilles' wrath. Achilles is faster. He means to exhaust him as one exhausts an animal before giving it the fatal blow in the back. He has to turn and face him. For the honor of Troy, for the defense of their homeland. In doing so, they will find out upon whom Zeus intends to confer glory. Hector regains the courage that had fled him. His brother is at his side, and it is as though the whole of Troy has come to his aid. Hector stops and turns to face Achilles. In a calm voice, he addresses his enemy. Achilles is the son of the divine Thetis, but he is not invincible. He, Hector, has already proved that his spear can be deadly. If he triumphs, he will take his adversary's illustrious armor. But he swears not to mistreat his body in any way and to return his corpse to the Greeks. Let Achilles promise to do the same. From now on, everything is in the lap of the gods. Let them decide and be the guarantors of this agreement. But Achilles, furious, burning to kill his enemy, roars in a terrible voice that he knows that his fate is to perish here, far from his father and his mother. No pact between them is possible. He will destroy Hector, he who killed Patroclus. And his soul will wander amongst the shadows for eternity. Hector throws his bronze spear at Achilles. But with a breath, Athena turns it towards the shield with 1,000 carvings. Hector's powerful spear does not pierce Achilles' shield. It is stopped dead by the layer of gold given to it by Hephaestus. Now unarmed, Hector calls to his brother Deiphobus and asks him for a new spear. But Deiphobus does not answer. Deiphobus is no longer with him. Hector understands. In his heart, Hector knows that Athena took on the appearance of Deiphobus in order to deceive him. Such then is the will of Zeus and of his son Apollo, who once protected him. Now, destiny has him in its grasp. Nevertheless, Hector does not intend to die without a fight, or without glory, or without doing some great deed that men will speak of in times to come. His whole body is protected by his bronze armor. The beautiful armor he stripped from the mighty Patroclus after killing him. Only one place is left exposed, a deadly place, at the base of his throat. Life slowly leaves Hector's body, and he is seized by the horrible shadow. Achilles strips Hector of his blood-stained armor, the armor he once gave to Patroclus. He pierces the dead man's ankles, passes thongs through the slits, and ties them to his chariot. Hector's head trails in the dust. A cry of pain is heard, that of a mother, Hecuba, mixed with that of a wife, Andromache. It is drowned out by the sobs and moans of thousands of Trojans that fill the whole city. Old Priam has no more tears. After having driven his chariot around the walls, Achilles returns one last time to the gates of Troy. He looks with scorn at the grieving inhabitants, and then goes back to the Greek ships. Night falls on the Grecian camp. The body of Patroclus has just been placed on a great pyre, along with jars full of honey and oil. Agamemnon and all the Greek kings are standing around the funeral bed. The pyre burns. Irritated, Achilles orders that once the corpse is burned, the ashes of his friend are collected and placed in a golden urn, into which, when the day comes, his own ashes will also be poured. As for Hector, he will rot, thrown to the dogs. But no dogs defile Hector's body. Night and day, Aphrodite keeps them away from him. On his battered body, she pours a divine oil, upon which Apollo breathes to stop the heat of the sun shriveling his skin. Aphrodite and Apollo feel pity for the dead hero. Apollo tries to soften the hearts of the other gods. Hector, the valiant Hector, has always burned the animals offered to the deities in their honor. Today, he is no more than a corpse. He is no longer threatening the Grecian ships or terrorizing the proud Agamemnon's warriors. The gods should allow him to receive the funeral rites so that he can approach the house of Hades in peace. Achilles should beware. His excessive fury has annoyed more than one god, who might one day make him pay for these outrages. Zeus himself would not be able to stop it. Hera once again tries to oppose the god of light, but Zeus intervenes. He decides that Achilles must return Hector to his family. The fate he is inflicting upon the man he defeated is unworthy. He orders Thetis to make her son relent. And he tells Hermes, the messenger of the gods, to take Priam to Achilles' tent so that the old man can bring his son back to his city without anyone seeing or stopping him. Standing in a chariot, Priam crosses the enemy lines. The dignified old king enters Achilles' tent. He clasps Achilles' knees, then kisses his hands, the terrible, murderous hands that have killed so many of his sons. Achilles remains silent. Priam pleads with him. He speaks of old Peleus, Achilles' father. He, at least, in distant Greece, can rejoice in the knowledge that his son is still living. As for him, Priam, his misfortune is complete. He has given his city 50 sons, and not one is left to him. And the one he loved most of all, Hector, is in the hands of Achilles. He has brought the Greek a huge ransom to buy him back. He deserves pity more than any other father, he who has brought to his lips the hands of the man who killed his sons. Achilles gently helps the old man to his feet, and both give way to their grief. One weeping over his son, Hector, the other over his friend, Patroclus. Achilles asks Priam to wait for him in his tent. He goes outside and orders his captives to wash Hector's body, to anoint him with all the oils they can find, and wrap him in the finest piece of linen that Achilles has. And for his men, the Myrmidons, to place the valiant Hector in Priam's chariot. Achilles asks the old king how much time he needs to prepare for the funeral. 12 days. Achilles commits himself to it, after which, and in spite of all the admiration he has for Priam's courage, the battle will recommence. Inside Agamemnon's tent, the joy of victory has given way to anger and incomprehension. Agamemnon is fuming. How could Achilles have promised the Trojans a 12-day truce without consulting him first? But neither the valiant Menelaus nor the giant Ajax thinks of blaming Achilles. Only Agamemnon is raging against the Greek king. In his corner, Ulysses, with his great cunning, remains silent. He is listening, not to the cries of the King of Kings, but to the voice of Athena, invisible to everyone and whispering in his ear. When the goddess withdraws, a smile appears on Ulysses' lips. Yes, of course. He's got it. Proud Troy is finished.